Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spoonful podcast. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Mario Piaquidio. Joining me, my very good friend, Mr. Emmett Watkins Jr. How are you, sir?
What is popping, ladies and gentlemen? I'm here to report to everybody that RRR is the greatest movie of all time. And if you haven't seen it, you're making a massive mistake with your
I need to
life.
watch. Where is it? Is it on Netflix? I think it's on Netflix, right?
I heard it is on Netflix. It was on Netflix at some point. I will check right now to confirm if it still is, but they put it back in theaters because it got Oscar nominated.
Uh,
Uh, and so me and Gabby watched it, and it's fucking phenomenal. It replaced Bad Boys 2 in my top 4 on Letterboxd.
wow. All right. That's a big one. Yeah, I've been meaning to watch that for forever because I've heard just everybody just gush on it.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous how good it is. And like it's good in ways that were surprising as well. I could talk about it for ages, but that's not what this episode's about.
This and that. Now, this is a deep dive on RRR.
Yeah, welcome to the RRR cast, where we
It's a
go
4 hour.
RRR it about RRR.
It's a 4 hour video essay.
The socioeconomic climate of RRR is something that is an eldritch horror.
By the way, I almost the other day watched Noah Caldwell Gervais, and I don't know if I said that right. Video
Said it
essay,
correctly.
perfect. It popped up on my like YouTube recommended list, and it was one of those moments of like, okay, technology is probably listening to us, but it was also like I think Elden Ring related, so I'm like, okay, it
Mm.
knows that I love Elden Ring. It knows I talk to Emmett every day. Not every day, but we do a podcast together and all that.
Yeah,
And I
frequently.
almost did it. I just had a lot of stuff to do and I got busy and I didn't get to do it, but I added it to my watch later YouTube list.
Mm.
So I'll get
Yes.
there at some point, man. I'll get there.
Yeah. If you're gonna watch a Noah Caldwell Gervais video, I mean, you already like Dark Souls, so probably start with the things that you like. But at the same time, they probably recommended that one. That one got like 1 million views very quickly.
Yeah.
I think the only other video of his that got 1 million views is that 7 hour Resident Evil video. But he has videos that are like 40 minutes. Maybe watch one of those first if you're intimidated by because even that Dark Souls video is like 2.5 hours long. So
Yeah.
yeah, watch something like the Fear video where he talks about the whole Fear franchise. That's a very satisfying
Sick.
video.
I did watch in terms of video essays, and at this point, it's like everybody's watched it, right? Especially in our circle. But the
Mhm.
Roblox Oof one by H Bomber
H
guy,
Bomber guy.
man,
Hell yeah.
what a roller coaster of a video, huh?
It is. It's just nice to take down somebody who's clearly at least some percentage of a piece of shit.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Definitely. It's a good time. It's just
Mhm.
a fun time.
Yeah, that's
Highly
always a good
recommend you
time.
watch that if you haven't.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that whole video. And yeah, if you haven't, listeners, yeah, go check that out. H Bomber guy makes great stuff. His Pathologic video is one of the greatest video essays ever as well. Got me interested in that game. Probably will never play it, but I find it fascinating.
Yeah. It's definitely I funny enough going through school, it's I thought the time that I was going to spend like listening to podcasts was going to go down a lot cuz I'm obviously a lot more, busy doing stuff
Yeah,
outside of work and school, right? Like homework and whatnot. And
for
in a
sure.
way it has, but for some reason, I don't know why my brain works this way, right? If I have to like write an essay or something like that, I can't be listening to music or a podcast or something like that because it just kind of fucks with my thought process. So that's when I'll
Hmm.
listen to like lo-fi music because lo-fi music is good to help you focus. I've read up on the science of that. It's pretty interesting. But
Yeah.
anyway, for some reason, my brain is totally 100% fine listening to a podcast and doing math at the same time. It's almost like one thing's numbers, the other thing's letters. Doesn't matter. It can function super, super equally and very efficiently. And the hardest class I'm taking this semester is math. So I'm doing a lot of my time studying or doing homework is math. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. A lot of
Hell yeah.
podcasts. Like
Hell
I've been
yeah.
catching up. Linus Tech Tips, which I'm a big fan of. I think we talked about it a little bit
Yeah,
offline a little bit ago.
indeed.
Um, I've been watching their videos for forever, and they have a weekly podcast that I used to listen to like 8 years ago. Right? It's like tech news or whatever, and
Hmm.
I've been subscribed to the channel for 8 years,
All those
right?
years. Yeah.
Literally been subscribed for it. It's one of my probably my longest running subscriptions. And the WAN show, which is their podcast, I had kept I dropped out of it, right? I stopped listening to it at some point. But I kept seeing that the shows kept getting longer and longer and longer each week. And they're to the point now where it's like a 3.5 to 4 hour episode
Uh,
like show.
it's just Tech Giant Bomb now.
Dude, yeah, but it's really good. Like one day I had nothing else to do, and I'm like, I had nothing else to listen to, and I had a lot of homework to do. And I was like, you know what? Let me pop this on. I haven't listened to this in years. And now it's my favorite podcast every week. And like I
That's
anticipate
pretty nice.
Fridays because I'm like, all right, here we go, man. Yeah.
I like it.
I
I
don't know
like
how we
it.
got here,
We're
but
gonna
yeah.
we're gonna be talking about podcasts like that pretty soon
I
because
figured,
that's
yeah.
definitely
You
gonna be
know
one of
what?
my
That's
picks.
that's what'll lead us into it. In terms of the topic today, it's a bit fast and loose. I think it's just the backbone
Yeah.
for the conversation we're gonna have. But you know how if you've been around Twitter, which I honestly haven't been a whole lot, but I do know what you're referencing.
Probably for
Um,
the best mentally.
honestly, dude, let's do a quick side note here. I set up for the first time. I used the feature that most phones have now, where you can set limits for your apps and like time
Yeah, app
limits and
timer.
yeah, app timers and whatnot. And you can even set like screen time, like total amount of time using your phone limits and all that. I finally started doing that for Twitter and Instagram, which are the two only social medias that I'll like scroll through, right? I don't I have TikTok installed and I don't think I've opened that app in like 5 months.
Mm.
Um and I set timers. Originally, it was like 30 minutes each. And now I'm to the point where I have a 20-minute daily limit for Twitter and a 15-minute daily limit for Instagram. And
Wow.
what it's created for me, and it's really worked for me, and I'm not saying that anybody should do it, but for me it's been really great, is that if I'm logging on to Twitter, if I'm logging on to Instagram, I have like a purpose behind it. I'm not
Mhm.
just mindlessly going through it. So, for example, I'll be at work and I'll have a little bit of downtime and I'm like, I could open up Twitter and like read through it, or I could study some of my flashcards instead and wait
Mm.
to save my Twitter time for later on tonight when there's a Knicks game and I'm gonna be, want to be interacting with Knicks Twitter and whatnot. So that's been super helpful for me, and it's been really funny to see my total time that I use my phone now because like it'll be like you used your phone for 6 hours yesterday, right? Like just to say a number,
Mm.
and it'll be
Yeah.
like Twitter 20 minutes, Instagram 15 minutes, everything else below that. YouTube 6 hours. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about
Yep.
right.
Bingo bango.
My
Yeah,
so
I need
this
to
is
use
like a
those timers.
glorified YouTube machine now.
I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, I need to get better about using the timers. At some point, I said, "Oh, let me set the timers really gracefully so I can like never hit it." I think I set it to like 3 hours, and I swear to God, about half the days I would hit it.
And that's it does
Bad.
the opposite effect, right? Cuz it's like a shitty feeling of like, oh man.
It's like, damn, I really use it that much.
Damn. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I used to hate those timers. I didn't even look at them cuz I'm like, fuck that shit. I'm just going to feel like shit over it. But now it's really worked for me, so
Mhm. Well, you have something you should be doing instead of being on Twitter. And I also have things I should be doing instead of being on Twitter, but a lot of that stuff requires being on Twitter also.
totally.
So,
Totally. No,
you
100%.
know.
Here's the other thing. Yes, I do have like obviously like homework and shit that I can do. But the other thing that it has helped me is to like on my downtime do things I'll
Mhm.
enjoy more than scrolling on Twitter. Like I've been
Mm.
playing a lot of my Steam Deck recently. I've been obsessing over Hades. So when I
Mm.
have like 15 minutes of downtime, normally I'd just sit like let's say I'm sitting in bed just scrolling through stuff or like in the morning or whatever. I'll just grab my Steam Deck and I'll play like a round of Hades. And I'll be like,
Mm.
that felt better for my brain.
Yeah. See, I should be doing that, but for YouTube, because like I can't tell you how much YouTube I watch instead of
Same.
playing a video game or watching a movie or TV or anything. So yeah, I definitely need to do that. I might investigate that after this right now. We'll see.
Shout
I'm gonna
out.
try and play some Wulong after this. Actually,
Oh, nice, nice, nice. I almost installed it on my PC and I'm like, I'm to the point where I have way too many games installed and I need to just take my time with it. I was
bro, Wulong's
literally
fun.
yeah. And now I'm at a point in my life where I'm a part-time worker, so I need to be really cautious with spending my money. And not that
Mhm.
not that I'm saying that before I was like bawling or anything, right? But if I could
Let's buy
justify,
3 cars.
yeah, I could justify buying a video game and be like, whatever, yeah, I'll play it. And I've done the thing which almost everybody's done, where you buy a game and like never play it, and you're like, well, all right.
Yep.
I can't really afford to do that at all right now, so I've been really stingy with myself. And I was gonna buy Metroid Prime Remastered, which is a game I really want to play, and it also happened with Dead Space remake. Um,
Mhm.
and I was like, dude, honestly, with Game Pass and with the new PlayStation Plus, it's such a
Wait a
better
couple
bang
months.
for the buck, man. Where
Yeah.
like I have so many games that I want to play and that I can play, and it's just way cheaper for me to do that right now than to like buy a $70 video game. It's crazy. Like I see the future of the industry. I'm like, this is good. I love this.
Amen. I'm right there with you. And actually, speaking of games, right before we actually crack into the topic, literally playing off of the last episode, over at VGU.TV, we finally wrapped up our Game of the Year series. That's going to be coming out pretty soon here. And at the end of the Game of the Year series, we made a promise. We said, hey, we're all going to choose a franchise. We're going to play the entirety of that franchise throughout this year. And by the time we finish Game of the Year next year, we're going to have played that whole series and we're going to talk about it. I picked Yakuza.
Oh my god, Emmett! We spent like 30 minutes of the last podcast talking about how it's like an impossible thing to tackle, and then
Look,
you hit stop recording and you went, I'm gonna do that.
no, here's the thing. We had that conversation and I downloaded Zero because I already own Zero
Right.
on Steam. So I downloaded Yakuza Zero
They're
and
all
I
on
was just
Game
looking at
Pass.
it. Yeah, well, they're all on Game Pass. They're all on PlayStation Plus Ultra or whatever, or Mega, whatever the top tier is.
So confusing.
It, yeah, exactly. They're already on these subscription services I own. The first one is one of the bigger ones. It's on deck, and I love playing stuff on deck. And in the challenge that we made, it's just the main line. I don't have to play Like a Dragon Ishin that just came out. I could just play 1 through 7. And I looked at the playtime. The main story for most of these games is like 20 hours and under. There's only 2 games, Yakuza 5 and Yakuza 0 are the only games that are in the 30-hour range.
Okay.
Everything else is like 17 for the main story in 3, 21 for the main story in 4, 18 for the main story in 2. Like it's not that bad.
All right.
Like
All right.
so like I can do it. I can do it in under 300 hours. Just the look you gave me of like under 300. That's
You
not even
know,
an under
you know
number.
how fucking insane you sound right now, man.
Hey, this all started because Graydon, one of the hosts on that show, also was like, he started this conversation by saying we should all play Kingdom Hearts.
Oh,
And so
oh god, oh no.
once I looked at it, I'm like, oh, I'm doing more work than he's doing for Kingdom Hearts, especially if he only plays 1 through 3 and watches the cutscenes for the mobile games. But I think I like the idea of Yakuza. I
All
like
right.
the melee combat. I like the little wacky stuff. I think I could get into it. Just a
All
lot of
right.
reading, if anything.
Fair enough. I mean, listen, I can't blame you too much. I did basically do that with From Software last year, right? Where I like marathoned every From Software game, or nearly every. I ran out of time, so there's
Yeah.
that. I ran out of time and
Bingo.
I just had to beeline straight to Elden Ring, but I can't blame you. I can't blame you.
Yeah.
So topic time. You brought this one up and I dug it. I like it. I think we can have some good conversation. If you've been around on Twitter, you've seen the 6 games to get to know me, 8 games to get to know me, 8 movies to get to know me. Sort of like,
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of people have been sharing it. It's an easy format to share on Twitter. You'll tag some people, they'll give theirs, they'll tag other people. You
Yeah.
know how social media works. You're here. You
Now
get
no one can tag either of us.
it. I'll just link to the video, get a preview. Come on, man.
Bingo.
Easy peasy. That's how you make a business. But
Yes, indeed.
so we're bringing this one up, and in great Spoonful fashion, right? We're not just gonna stick to video games or to music or to whatever. We're just kind of doing it all. Six pieces of media, and we chose 6 to get to know me, right? If you were to tell somebody these are things that I fuck with and I relate to, these are it.
Yep. The
Do you
things
want
that
to get us
define
started?
us.
Do you want me to get us started?
Are you Reverend itching to go? Because I got like 4 of mine. I'm still thinking of the other 2, but I
I
got my
have
4.
I have 5 prepped. I have 5 ready.
Okay, we could
And
do 5, and I can just think of one more.
Yeah, yeah. And if I come up with a
Yeah,
6 one later, then we'll do 6. So we'll
perfect,
call it
perfect.
5. We'll call it 5 for now.
All right. In that case, yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and kick us off. The first one here. Actually, I'll do the first one being an obvious one that people could probably guess. Especially, well, it's up on my wall, but you can't see it in the framing I have right now. Also, earlier before the show, I was like, "Oh, I have so many clothes on my couch. Let me throw them off my couch." Just for me to throw them on top of my chair right behind my couch, and them still being in frame. So good for me. Um,
Nice. Good one.
but yeah, the thing I'm gonna say, yeah, very good one. The first one I'm gonna pick is a little album that pretty much changed who I am, really heavily affected me, and put me onto the path of becoming who I am today. And that is "To Pimp a Butterfly" by Kendrick Lamar. Um, this is very obvious. We've talked about Kendrick several times on this podcast. I like Kendrick a lot, and really it stems from this album being why I love him so much.
Mm.
That album, like Good Kid, Mad City is a great album. Love that. Section 80 is a great album. I listened to that as well. But it wasn't until To Pimp a Butterfly where it seemed like he was trying to change the world with his art, and it had a really deep resounding effect on me. All of my little, because I'm a very like politically, I have strong thoughts person. um I don't always talk about them because time and place, and also, man, it can kill the mood if I talk about some of the shit that I feel about the world. So you pick and choose your battles there, but a lot of my viewpoints have come from this album, or a lot of like things that I feel I started thinking about as an effect of listening to this album. And just set me on a path of like, figuring out how I feel about the state of the world, figuring out, being more proud of me, and me being black. And me being black has never been something I've hid necessarily,
You're
but
black?
it audio listeners are like, what?
Oh,
Oh
what?
shit. I should Where's the blessing gift from the blessing show episode this
That's
week?
exactly what I was thinking
He's
about.
like,
Yeah.
surprise, I'm black. But yeah, but no, like it's totally, I've been able to put that in as like a side thing for many parts of my life. But Pimp Up a Butterfly is where I began to, or where I fully began to embrace it and be like, oh, this is like a defining trait of me. You won't be able to ignore that fact if you are interacting with me. And so it kind of started that there. And yeah, it gave me a big sense of pride, and it gave me a big sense of like political and social awareness
Mm.
that I don't think I really had before I listened to that album. Didn't really care about the state of the world, and then that album came out, and now I really care about the state of the world, and it's something that's constantly on my mind. And it also helps that that came out like right before 2016, where everyone cared about the political climate for
Mm.
reasons that are hopefully obvious if you lived through all that shit. So yeah, one of my favorite albums of all time, probably just my favorite album of all time. And actually, when we take this trip to LA, I'm planning on getting a tattoo of the song
Sick.
I,
I
like just
love
that little
I.
logo
Yeah,
from the
yeah, yeah.
single. Yeah. So yeah, it's impactful to me.
I love that. I love that for you. Would that be your first
Indeed.
tattoo? I forgot.
It would be my first tattoo.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sick.
Gabby's got like 4 or 5. So she's been trying to get me
Sick.
on the train.
Sick.
So yeah. Bingo
It's
bango.
it's funny we came into talking about tattoos, right? Because in a way, my tattoo style, right? What
Hmm.
what I get tattooed is this topic. It's like, here are things that I love that represent me in different ways that I'm just kind of like putting out there, and if some people realize it, they'll point it out. Like at work the other day, I'll get a lot of people talk about like, "Oh, that's a really cool axe, right? I have the
Yep.
Leviathan axe here."
Bad
But
axe.
you say, "Yeah, that's a bad axe." And every now and then, and it happened to me at work the other day. I was helping out somebody with their dog, and he goes, "Is that the Leviathan axe?" And whenever that happens, it's an instant like, "Fuck yeah, you're a dork like me. I love
Hmm.
it. We're in.
Yep. He
We're
said,
nerds."
ah.
And I
Yep.
go, "Yeah, it is." And then I'm going to show him that. He's like, "Oh, you got the fireflies too." And then I say, "Yeah," and I got this. Like, "Oh, that's from Ellie's tattoo." So I'm like, this guy and I fuck with this guy. I love it. So
Bingo.
that's what pretty much all of my tattoos are. I think that there's only a couple tattoos that I have that are like not necessarily me sort of projecting things that I love, right?
Yeah.
But even then, I have a tattoo on my leg that's like a, in a way, it's like a homage to my dad, but it's also a homage to my love for baseball and our love for like how that has. So that's what a lot of things that I'm going to be talking about. I'm like, yeah, and I have this tattoo over here because of it. So
Mhm.
to get started with the number one thing, the number one topic that I have the most tattoos out of, right? Other than video games, I guess they kind of count, but it's an easy one, right? You're talking Kendrick. It's an easy one for me to slide into. Another obvious one. That's Taylor Swift.
Kanye what? Oh, okay, yeah, Taylor.
And it's hard for me to really pick an album. There's 10 of them, right? It's impossible for me to be like this one out of the 10 is really the one that I fuck with most. So I'm bending the rules slightly. I'm just saying Taylor Swift, right? There's a reason why I
Perfectly
have
fine.
three Taylor Swift related tattoos, right? It's cuz in many ways just like you're talking about for Kendrick, I feel like who I am and a lot of the things that I value in life were massively impacted by Taylor Swift. And that might sound odd to somebody because you can kind of draw that connection with Kendrick's music a lot more, especially if you're talking about To Pimp a Butterfly, right? Because it's talking about social
Mhm.
issues and kind of it's kind of easier to figure how that
Yeah.
could impact your life. But for me, it truly is that through listening to Taylor Swift, it really helped me at the time where you're a developing young man, right? You kind of don't know who you are in life, and you have a lot of feelings. It really helped me be in touch with my feelings and my emotions, and
Hmm.
sort of not be afraid to show my feminine side, right? And kind of help me push aside a lot of what toxic masculinity is, and just be open and proud about who I am, right? It's not like this is a big revelation. It's just like, yeah, I am a very sentimental person, and I am a very emotional person, and those are things that I think are valuable. And in my current relationship, that's a huge part of it, and it's a cornerstone of a relationship, and it's a thing that I'm proud of, and I like about myself. And
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, that's a big one, man. It just really helped me in life, and there's also all the stories of like, oh, the music got me through dark times. I think everybody who has a favorite artist has those level of stories, but yeah, Taylor Swift, man, it's very impactful in who I am and how in touch with my emotions I am.
Yeah, I feel you exactly on that. Like, I'm not gonna mention any of these people for like art that defines me, though a lot of these people do. But like, I had a similar thing with like, hey, I got Lemonade right here in the corner from Beyonce up here, a big Beyonce fan, and listening to stuff from her, and just listen to a lot of like Ariana Grande and like even like the slow jam stuff, the Alicia Keys and whatnot.
Yeah,
That stuff kept me in tune with that side of myself as well. And turns out it was all for the best because I can't tell you how much Gabby is like, thank God you're someone who has that type of
totally,
personality type. That's
dude.
exactly what she was looking for.
That's what happened to me in my relationship too. It's like
Hmm.
the stereotype of like the guy who doesn't even want to cry right in front of anybody. Like I've always hated that shit, and
Hmm.
I've hated it even more through things like this. And I'm totally the opposite, right? And I think in especially in this day and era, we all know that gender is like an extremely fluid thing that there's no point in like setting definitions for, right? And super hard boxes. And I kind of had that similar mindset where, yeah, I'm a straight cis man, but at the same time, I feel extremely comfortable with like a lot of femininity that I have, and I love that about myself, you know.
Amen. Amen. Soft boys unite. Clap.
Hell yeah, man!
Hell yeah. Yeah, I definitely
Ice
feel you.
Spice loves us. I don't know if you
Exactly,
know that
right?
meme, but I love that.
Wait, is that a meme? What was that mean?
So I only consume TikTok through Jimena, right? Jimena will have will have like almost nightly sessions where she'll like a bunch of TikToks to show me, and that's how I consume through TikTok, and it's usually funny stuff. Ice Spice
There.
rapper, if you're not familiar with her,
Yep. You might know her from The Boys Are Liar Part 2.
yes, classic,
Love
classic,
that song. It's
modern
great.
mass. Oh my god, I love Ice Spice, dude. I'm a huge Ice
Yeah.
Spice guy. It also helps that she's from the Bronx, and I hear her talking. I'm like, yep, fuck yeah,
Yeah.
that's my people right there.
Gabby does the best impression of her when she says "damn." There's like a twinge on it that
there is
Gabby
a.
nails. It's crazy.
I love it, dude. I love it.
It's
I
like
love her.
damn.
There's a really great clip from a podcast where they're asking her like, "Oh, you don't like hard boys, right? You like squares." And she says like, "No, I like good boys and girls." And it's just like a meme where it's dudes, and then when she says good boys, they're like all dressed up like, and they got the glasses
Hmm.
and the thing. And then they say girls and they put on a wig because people are in love with Ice Spice. So every
I
time
love
that
that.
comes up, I'm like, I'm a good boy. That's me.
I feel that. I feel that. Man, I can't make jokes anymore. I was about to be like, Ice Spice, call me, but like, nah, call
Ah,
us.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's a group now. It's a group.
There you go. This is a tag team match. Oh boy, I'm talking out of pocket today. Well, let's change up the subject completely
Yeah.
with another piece of art that defines me. And this is gonna be weird, so I gotta like explain. SpongeBob SquarePants. Here we fucking go.
Love it. Here we go. Emmett
Um,
Zone. We're in.
and wait until you. Okay, here's the opening salvo.
Okay.
So like this kind of ties into my religion a little bit.
Whoa. Whoa.
Stick with me on this one.
This is a
This
title of a 17-hour video essay, dude.
right? This is fucking the Eldritch horror of SpongeBob SquarePants. But no, so yeah, I grew up watching SpongeBob. SpongeBob is one of the earlier things that I was obsessed with as a kid. Everyone knew me as like the SpongeBob kid. When the first movie came out, just to give you an idea of how much I love SpongeBob as a kid, when the first movie came out on DVD. Of course, I saw the movie in theaters several times. Then it came out on DVD. I had the DVD first. And we had this after school program called Prime Time, where it was basically just we'll watch your kids for a couple hours until you're off of work to pick them up.
Mm.
And I brought in that movie on movie day, and another kid brought in the same movie, and it was a battle between us to watch the same movie. Everyone specifically voted for my copy of SpongeBob because they knew that I'm like the nut about SpongeBob. So like, yeah, I've always been a big SpongeBob fan. You know, still it's a classic to me to this day. But like, it's something subtle that kind of happened over time where like, look, yeah, I come on here, I wear this little cross every day and all that stuff. But like my Christianity isn't something that I'm like super out there about. Not because like, well, part of it is like the historical shame of people using Christianity to do atrocities throughout
Fair,
history.
right.
Like
Kind of a bit
not
of a
in love with
tainted
that.
name, a little bit.
Exactly. Some of that's like bad, but like I was just raised as a Christian, so it's less of a thing that I'm like super aggressive about, more of a thing that like this is just what I believe now. Here I am. But it's I've always been a person who wants to be less of a Christian and more Christ-like, where being a Christian has some bad implications, and especially someone who's been through some churches, seen some people who claim they are Christian or of God and are doing some really shady shit. I've seen a lot of that. So I'm like, being a Christian isn't a virtue. Being Christ-like ideally is.
I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, SpongeBob, I've always kind of looked up to SpongeBob indirectly. Like just as a kid, I kind of like just acted like him, where I'm always excited, always wanting to help other people, always just trying to put a smile on other people's faces. Like legit, like I forget the episode, but that episode where he's like, what could be better than serving up smiles? If that's not legitimately my slogan, like in life, and you know, this is a weird thing to say, but at a very early age, I thought of what SpongeBob is as kind of being what, like, all the good things that they talk about Jesus Christ being is what SpongeBob is.
That's
In a weird way.
no, I see the connection. I see it. I like it.
Yeah, so it's something where at some point, like in the recent past, like probably right after high school or so, I probably wouldn't have said SpongeBob is so important to me. But the more I think about it as I've gotten older, it's like, oh man, that was really the building block to like the lens in which I saw like religion, the lens in which I saw how to be to other people, like just how to be. He kind of set the template for me. So shout out to SpongeBob SquarePants. I love that show's great. It's still funny and all, but like really just how SpongeBob is how I've been my whole life. And yes, I've modified it as I've aged up, but he set the template for me, man. Weird to admit that, but it's true.
No, I get it, dude. Like SpongeBob in its own way, he's a really great role model, right? Like he's a really good dude. He's happy. He's like determined. He's he's a great guy to want to be like. So I dig that.
Mhm.
I dig it.
Yep. Shout out Tom Kenny. Shout out Steven Hillenberg, R.I.P.
I know, right? Legend.
Yeah.
I am funny enough. Uh, there's a good chance I'm gonna get a SpongeBob tattoo at some point. Cause
Ooh.
yeah, Jimena, her best friend and I, we when I lived in my previous apartment, we all moved in together, right, for a bit. And it
Mhm.
was the first time all of us had like moved away from home, so we have that bonding of being like each other's first ever roommates. And we were talking that we would love to get a tattoo to commemorate that, and we all decided that we're gonna get Patrick Squidward and SpongeBob's houses tattooed on us. We'll each pick one. And yeah,
A pineapple.
I think I'm the Squidward of the group, and I'm cool with that. I get it.
Mm.
It's fine.
That's funny.
That it's good.
Hey, I'm the
That's okay.
SpongeBob of the group, so we match.
There you go. Exactly. So
Yin
I'm
and
cool
yang.
with it. I'm cool with it. And Jimena and Maria, that's her name. They've been best friends forever. So I'm like, you guys have to be Patrick and SpongeBob, right? Like it's like
Bingo, bango.
I can't be out here being a SpongeBob. But yeah, so that's a funny one.
I can't be out here being a SpongeBob. That's just a funny sentence.
Clip that
Oh
out.
god. Yeah. I can't be out here sponging the Bob. What do I look like? But yeah, SpongeBob is one of those
SpongeBob.
influential things. And yeah, that's a big reason why I cried at the movie when I was like 10 years old when the ending happens and they
Oh my
form that
God.
tear into a heart. I'm like, fuck, that's me and my best friends.
No, 100%. That's just beautiful. It's a great movie. I was randomly thinking about it the other day. I couldn't sleep, and I was just thinking about how fucking good the SpongeBob movie is. I'm like, dude,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of those instances where I don't know. Okay, so I was discussing this with Jimena as a total side point. We were talking about like Nickelodeon movies and how because where we were at growing up, I have like a weird perception of certain things. Like I always thought that Jimmy Neutron, for example, was a show, and then they made a movie out of it. And
Wow.
it's completely the other way around, right?
Yep.
And one of the reasons why I always thought that is because I thought it was like the SpongeBob template, right? Where it's like this show that was iconic for years and years and years, or The Simpsons for that matter, right? And then they make a movie, a big budget thing where the animation looks sick and it's like really fucking good. And yeah, I don't know. That's a random one where I'm like, man, they really knocked it out of the park with a SpongeBob
Yeah.
movie. Like that's a classic.
Yeah, SpongeBob movie's a classic. That's why they keep trying to re-emulate it. They're trying to make like a fourth movie or some shit.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
don't
it's
know.
working out, man.
Yeah, it's not. I watched that second one, Sponge Out of Water. Did not hit. Did not.
I didn't
hit.
watch it. I was like, this just isn't it.
Well, it was definitely like the more recent seasons of SpongeBob where it's like we're just like Ren and Stimpy now, and it's like man, it misses the magic. Ugh.
Yeah, I literally SpongeBob. Funny enough, was the only cartoon I stopped watching like Disney Channel and Cartoon Network and like the kids shows fairly early, right? Like for some reason, there was early in my life. I can't remember exactly how
We
old I
had the
was.
internet. That's why.
Yeah, I think I just became an internet kid, and I was like, all right, I'm over all this stuff. But the one exception was SpongeBob. Every time that SpongeBob was on, I'd be like, I'm putting on SpongeBob. And then I kept
Hell yeah.
watching the latter seasons, and I'm like, this is just not the same. It's like weird
Yep.
humor where like it's a gross out humor. I'm like, that's not SpongeBob. What the hell?
Exactly. SpongeBob felt very classical. He felt like a
Yeah.
Looney Tunes extension or something like that, where you'd never do that shit with Bugs Bunny, but here they are doing that shit with SpongeBob. But at least we have Camp Coral. Nah, I can't even say
Yeah.
that. I can't even say that legitimately.
Mm.
Oh boy, dig me out of this hole. I'm digging.
Next one is an easy one again for like you and me and the way that we met and
Mhm.
and like probably most of the people listening, and I'm wearing the hoodie, and it was my first ever tattoo, right? For a
Bingo,
reason.
bango.
There's a reason why my first tattoo is the kind of funny smiley. Out of all my tattoos, the one that will never get recognized and almost never gets recognized as like I know what that is. I think it's happened like twice in my life where somebody's been like, "Yo, kind of funny." I'm like, "Yeah, cool." Because you
Yeah.
also gotta think about, I live in Florida, like, and not like in Miami, right? Like,
Yeah.
the odds are low of somebody
Mhm.
recognizing me, or recognizing the logo. I mean, So people are always like, "Oh, I like the smiley face." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I have a smiley face tattoo. That's what it is. Sure."
I love Walmart.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Specifically in 2003.
But there is a reason why it's my first ever tattoo, right? Because I've talked about it. There's videos about it on my YouTube channel. There's literally a video about why I got the kind of funny tattoo. But it's in a time of my life, like in you know kind of like middle school, high school days, where my the closest thing to a friend group that I had was the kind of funny boys, right? And in a similar way to what I was talking about with Taylor Swift, where they helped me be a better person, I think kind of funny helped me be a better person, right? I grew up in Venezuela, and you know, them talking about certain like social issues and just their general message of kind of funny always having being like to just kind of be a good person, right? That
Hmm.
those are lessons that I legitimately learned. I was growing up, I was a kid when I started like interacting with them, whether it was pre kind of funny days or as kind of funny days, even during kind of funny. Like, how old is kind of funny at this point?
Fuck. They founded the year after I graduated high school, so 2014 to
20
now.
yeah, so
Almost a
2014.
decade.
I was still
Fuck.
in high school. I was a what you would call my junior year, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm a baby, dude. Like I'm not a
Certainly.
human being yet. You know what I mean? Like
You're not an adult yet.
I'm not an adult. Like my values then aren't set in stone. Like yes, this is who I am. So
Yeah.
having just a group of like good people there to basically act as my only friend group, and what would later turn into legitimate friend groups, right? Like you and I wouldn't be
Mhm.
friends if it wasn't for kind of funny.
For sure.
And it's changed my life, and it's changed many people's lives, and regardless of what the company is now, what the company will be in the future, like it's just such an important moment in my life, and that's why I always knew that I wanted that tattoo, right? Even if in the future I never listen to kind of funny ever again, right? Which it's not that I don't, but I definitely listen to it a lot less than I used to, right? I just don't have the time of day to listen to
Yeah.
every single podcast that they produce, and they do the Lord work over there. But back in those days, where again they were the closest thing I had to a friend group, and even when I first moved to the US was in 2015, man. And I
Wow.
literally had no friends, right? Literally had no friends. I just
Mhm.
moved to a
Starting
new
from
country.
0.
They were my friends. That's why you saw me on Colin and Greg Live, and later on called the kind of funny morning show, tipping and interacting with people and talking to the chat. And that's why Twitter was such a big part of my life, because that was the only community that I had, the only group I had. And it's just,
Hmm.
it's meant the world, man. Even though I probably listen to one or two podcasts a week now just because of my schedule, those people over at Kind of Funny will always be a gigantic impact in my life and who I am and why I am the way I am. So I got to pick it.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. They are definitely, when it comes to like podcasts and just like solid people I know from the internet, they're definitely the home base. A lot of people I know are from that community, or at least from the periphery of that community. So yeah, I owe a lot to them. I owe a lot to that team. A lot of there's so many trips, so many friends I wouldn't have interacted with. Where shoot, I went to my first convention for Kind of Funny, and then ended up getting my first friend because they recognized me from the Comedy Button Facebook group. And then we said, "Hey, we're going to see Kind of Funny in Texas. You want to come with?" I said yes. And then that started a grand tradition of just rubbing elbows with the community, doing stuff with them. And, that led all the way to now where I'm about to go to PAX to hang out with a lot of those folks again.
Oh
So,
yeah.
for the first time in a while. So, yeah, it connects in a very similar way to you. They've done a lot. And I'm sure they know, but it's very, they had a good community, and thank God it was a good community, because especially for you starting out very young, trying to figure out what your morals are, it's good that you were listening to folks who at least
Yeah.
mostly all had
Right?
good
Like
morals.
this is the internet, dude. Like could you imagine how
Hmm.
much the other way that could go if like the group I found wasn't kind of funny, right? If it's like random X internet group, I
Oh
could
yeah,
have
you could have been horrible.
could have gone a whole fucking different way, man. But they were good people, and the community surrounding them were good people and are good people, and yeah, I mean, I think those early days are just so special, and not to say that nowadays the best friend
No, it
motto
sucks.
isn't there, right? And not to say that they're assholes now. They're still good people, right? They still do that. But I think in the early days, especially because it was such a small, tight knit group, it just it was special, man. Like that was a special time in life, you know?
It was very noticeably intimate back then in
Yes.
a way where you can't have it be that intimate now, not just because, oh, there's a bigger group, but also just the type of content, the polish of the content. Like it feels less like a thing running out of a bedroom, literally.
Yeah,
Feels more like a,
which is great,
which
right?
is
Like
great. Yeah.
the fact that they have a badass studio now and they have what 10, 11 employees is
Hmm.
fucking sick, and I hope that they become the next I was talking about Linus Tech Tips, right? Linus Media Group. They're like unbelievable. They have like 100 people in staff and they're making incredible products, right? Like I have a desk pad here that I'm sitting on and it's the highest quality desk pad I've ever used. And I bought their backpack and it's the highest quality backpack I've ever used. And that's like their whole motto. But, they started also as a small YouTube channel, right? So I hope that that's the future. Kind of funny that in 10 years they're a fucking incredible, awesome company. And I don't know if that's what they want to do, right? But I'm just saying I love that growth for them, and I support it, and I'll always be a kind of funny supporter till like the day I die. But those early days are so special because of the how early it was, right?
Yep. Yep. I love it. Love getting there on the ground floor. And this next thing I'm about to talk about, I kind of wish I was able to get in on the ground floor, though that would have required me to be born like 16 years earlier.
That's a tough one.
Very tough one. Kind of hard to be like, hey, dad, can you meet my mom like a little sooner? Or not even meet her because they were like childhood like sweethearts. So like, I don't know,
Get
maybe
on it a little. A little
yeah,
quick.
maybe like let's get this thing popping, like
Come on, man, speed it up, please.
yeah, come on. I want to get in the ground floor on This American Life. Um,
Mm.
This American Life's a big one for me. I really got into This American Life in a very specific point in my life. Kind of similar to you, where you talked about how kind of funny is kind of the thing that filled that vacuum of lack of friend groups and all that stuff. I went away to school right after high school. I went to Valdosta State, and it's not even that far away from where I lived. It was maybe 2, 3 hours away, but it was far enough, and I didn't have a car, so it was far enough to where, you know, I didn't know anyone there. There were two other people I knew from my high school that went there, and I think we hung out once or twice. And then after that, we went our separate ways and found our own groups and whatnot. I never really clicked onto a group because I was very much like go to class, go home, go to class, go home, or go to the dorm. So I didn't really do much extracurricular activities and whatnot. And, part of that is on me, but I also just didn't feel like even friends in class. I'm like, y'all are all right. Just didn't feel pulled to anyone. But in that vacuum, I got into This American Life really hardcore. And it was a podcast I had heard about, but I didn't really get into it until then, and I got really obsessed. I went on the subreddit. Someone had a link to like all the episodes because, for those who don't know, This American Life, it is a podcast now, but it started as a radio show,
Mm.
and it's been going since like the late '80s, maybe early '80s. It's been going for a very, very long time. And it's just different random stories of different random people across the country, sometimes outside of the country from the American perspective. And it's just a really great show, and I think it's something that is so impactful to me because it kind of ties into this one concept that probably isn't an original concept, but it's something I heard first on the Logic album Everybody. Stick with me here. I'm gonna go ahead and spoil the album, I guess, but there's this whole concept of like there's a guy who dies at the beginning of the album and he's like in this limbo and he's like, oh, am I about to go to heaven or hell? And then there's this God there who's like, oh, there is no heaven, there is no hell. You just get reincarnated into everyone's life over and over again until you've lived every single life of every single person that has ever lived in this timeline. And then once you've seen all those perspectives and lived all those lives, you become a celestial being. You become a god like me once you've seen all these experiences. And This American Life is kind of that for me
Mm.
because I do have a feeling that if we can just understand each other, if we have understanding between everybody, then that's like the ultimate goal. That's like the ultimate way of unity and all that stuff. So This American Life is like a small way in which I gain a little bit of understanding from different people's perspectives. All these stories are so varied. Some of them are funny, some of them are sad, some of them are devastating, some of them are weird, some of them are not even all that entertaining. But I find it all fascinating.
Mm.
Just all these stories. It's still going on. It's what 500 episodes deep. I think it's about to hit 600 or something soon. And it is a podcast that I always, whenever I'm thinking about stuff, whenever I'm like mad or something, and there's another thing that Gabby's always like, "Oh, I really appreciate this about you." Um, I try to think of things from someone else's perspective so often.
Mm.
Uh, it stops me from getting mad. It stops me from like going off the deep end often because I always sit there and think, why are they like that? And sometimes I won't like what I find when I think about it. Sometimes it makes me hold up a little bit and then I slow down on my anger or whatever emotion I was about to give out. But yeah, This American Life, I think we all need to gain perspective, and the more perspective we gain, I think we become better people ultimately. And This American Life is that vehicle from my perspective, or it has been historically. And since then, now we got video essays. I watch a lot of video essays from a lot of different types of people
Yeah.
who give me a lot of different types of perspectives, and stuff like that. So that's the catalyst right there. This
Do you still
American Life.
listen
Shout out
to This
Ira
American
Glass.
Life?
I do still
Nice.
listen. I don't listen every single week because, like you, really the only thing I listen to regularly is like Kind of Funny Games Daily, and then after that, it's whatever else I have time for. This American Life, I often make time for. Probably about once a month, I'll catch up with an episode or two.
Mm.
And yeah, it's still good. Often they'll have really timely episodes. I remember when usually whenever there's like, oh, January 6th just happened, the next episode will be, here's some stories of people from January 6th
Yeah. Oh.
and all this other shit. And sometimes they'll do episodes like that and I'm like, I don't want to hear from these people right now. I'm mad at them. But sometimes I'm glad I did, because I'm like, all right, well, because here's the thing about a lot of that stuff. It made me realize that some people are not inherently evil. Some people are products of their environment. Some people are victims to being lied to and manipulated.
Yeah, and they kind of
Some
bought
people,
into an
Mhm.
evil thing. Doesn't necessarily make
Exactly,
you evil, but you blindly
exactly.
bought into it. So I know what you mean.
Yeah, I really get that perspective a lot from, not just This American Life, but other similar podcasts that American Life has brought me to. So yeah, I owe it to that podcast for really making me think a little bit more critically about things, so I don't blindly fall into different patterns and different us versus them mentalities myself. Because,
Right.
I really feel like if we all work together, we all want the same things, like generally in humanity. If we all just work together, we'll be great. And I think the best way for us to work together is if we all understand each other. And this helps me. This helps me do so.
No, that's awesome, dude. That's sick. That's such a great display of what like the purpose behind this is, right? Where it's not just like Fast and the Furious, because I love cars. Like this, this is getting like
Yeah.
deep into it, and I dig that. I dig that a lot.
Oh yeah.
Um, this is another one that I think at a surface perspective, it can sound a lot more shallow than what it truly is for me. And this is slightly bending the rules, I think, because
Hmm.
it's a very broad thing. But that's sports, man. If you know anything
Oh,
about
okay.
me, I'm a huge sports nerd, right? Like
Hmm.
I'll watch all of the games of whatever my teams are, and then sports, specifically New York teams for the American sports, right? And internationally, it's Italian football. When I say football, I mean soccer. And both Napoli, which is the city where my grandmother comes from, and the Italian national team as a whole, right? I I my life like works around those things, and it legitimately does, right? Like if I know the Knicks play at 4, so I'm making sure that by 4. I'm not saying that we have to cut the podcast off by 4, by the way.
305. Cut. No, I'm
All right, fuck it,
kidding.
fuck you, Emmett. No, but right, it's something that I especially since I moved into the U.S. and I had the ability to actually devote myself to that sort of thing. I do, and it's a thing that I've learned about myself, and my dad was the one who pointed this out to me once, and I'm going to talk about my dad a lot relating to this, where when I told him that I was going to propose to Jimena, right? Of course, he was happy.
What
And
soccer game's on that day?
yeah, I was like, I don't know, man. Think about it. He was, of
Post one in
course,
an hour.
he was, of course, stoked for me, right? But my dad's the kind of guy who loves to share wisdom whenever he can, right? Like to try to teach me a lesson, and not in a bad way. Just be like, okay, well, so he was imparting words of like, I know, I know that because you are who you are, this is the right decision. And
Mhm.
the thing that he said about me that really stuck to me is, I know when you love something, you love it extremely passionately. Like when once you are into something, you are gonna give it your all. And that sort of mindset is how I am about sports, right? When I watch when I'm a Yankee fan, right? I'm the New York Yankees. I love the New York Yankees. I'm not just because I'm not wired that way. I'm not the guy who will out watch a game every week and be like, "Oh, how are the Yankees doing? Cool. All right, great. Oh, they're in the playoffs. Okay, let me watch that."
Yep.
That's not the way I enjoy things, right? I love to give it my all and to watch every game. Granted, if things happen, right, I'll miss games. I'm not saying that I'm I'll stop my life for watching the Yankee game or
Mhm.
whatever it is. But if I'm able to, I want to watch it. And a big part of why sports are so awesome to me, one is a connection to my dad. I love all the sports that I love because of my dad. My dad's a big sports nerd, and you know through a lot of periods of our life, we've been apart, like distance wise. So we just don't live in the same area, and
Mhm.
sports are that way for us to keep in touch with one another and to keep in touch with a purpose, right? Where it's not just
Mm.
like, oh, how was your day? Okay, yeah. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But for at least in my eyes, the way conversation gets that me and my dad will have a 25-minute conversation on the phone is like, oh yeah, let's talk about the Knicks and what they're doing right now and what I think they should be doing better. And the few times in life where we have been living at the same time, we would watch sports every other night nearly, right? He would come over with a pizza and we would have some beers and we'd talk about the game. And now that we live in different states, we'll make sure that okay, the Yankees are going to play in Tampa this weekend. We're both going to go, we're
Mhm.
going to meet up there, we're going to spend the weekend together. So it's always been a great thing that I've bonded with my dad over. Some of my fondest memories growing up are sports related, right? And some of them are with my dad, some of them are with my mom. But the thing I love about sports is the stories that are in sports, and the only real way that you get those stories is by being a devoted fan and watching the whole thing, right? Because sometimes there are stories within a game, right? Like, and it can be fascinating. For me, they are fascinating, right? Where I don't know, this one player was really mad, and he was showing it, but then he composed himself and he did this and he hit a huge shot. That's within it of itself a story. But then there's always a grander story, right? Oh, maybe this player he he's been underperforming the last 3 years of his career, and this year he's really trying to do better. And then there's even grander stories, right? Like talking about a team. Oh, this whole team
Mhm.
has been underperforming for the last decade, and all of these things have happened, and it's so fascinating because it's new every single time, and it's one of the only few things in life, at least I feel that way, that I experience that I just have no idea what's going to happen, right? I don't know. It's
Mm.
new, it's fresh,
Every
it's
single
live.
time.
It's happening there. The stakes are there, and you know, it might take. I'm a Knicks fan, right? The Knicks have been awful for nearly my entire life, dude. Like awful.
Yeah.
They
I
were
would've nixed them from my roster a while ago.
they were literally the joke of the NBA for years. And those years, I was watching every single game still. And this year and a couple of years ago, they started being good, right? They started being a little bit good. And they're in the playoffs. And I don't know if it's going to lead to something. But if
Mm.
in 2 years, the Knicks win a championship, right? Just to
It
say,
will have been worth it.
that's gonna be like one of the best moments of my life. And people
Mhm.
sometimes have a hard time understanding that because they're like, oh, it's just a sports and the sports ball and whatever. It's you don't get it, man. When you're invested and you have personal connections to these people that you're watching, and and you've known so much about them for so long, and you have such a connection to a franchise, and then you have interpersonal connections in your life where, oh, this is my dad's favorite team, and my dad's a Yankee fan because he had family on the Bronx, right? Like a side of our family's from the Bronx, and he would come over to visit, and they would walk to Yankee Stadium, and all of those stories are passed down on to me, and it just sort of feels like I'm continuing that legacy because sports happen every year, right? Like
Oh,
it
yeah.
keeps going, it keeps writing itself. It's an endless story, and I fucking love it so much, man. And it's between sports and video games, they're my two favorite things in life. Like there's just nothing I love more to entertain myself than video games and sports.
Hmm. I respect the hell out of that. Like that is something that I don't often talk about, but as the son of Coach Watkins, sports was a big part of my family as well. Specifically football, the actual football, not the soccer. Well, American football. How about that? Let's not say actual.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, let's not get disrespectful
Thank you.
here.
Thank
Um,
you. I appreciate it. As an
oh yeah,
Italian and a Venezuelan, I
oh
appreciate
yeah.
that.
I said as soon as I said that, I'm like, that didn't taste right. Uh, but yeah, as someone who watched a lot of American football growing up, just exposed to it a lot. Shit, I was a ball boy in middle school. I was the ball boy at the high school games. I would literally, whenever in between plays, I would give them a fresh ball. I'd take the ball they gave me, shake it up in a big bag of dust to dry off all the sweat, and then swap the ball out on the next play. Like I was on the sidelines just in all these games. So while I don't talk about sports all the time, and really it's not a passion of mine necessarily, you ever take me to a live game, I get swept up in it just like anybody else. Like I remember last time I was at a live game for my little brother. He plays for Kennesaw State, and I get tied up in the, oh man, did you see that touchdown? Did you see that offsides? Did you see that? Like suddenly I know all the terms, like
Yeah,
everything's
you're
coming
in
back
it.
to me. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I agree with you about it being like a never ending story. It's like a season of television that's always going. Like the show never ends.
It's
And
awesome.
for someone like me who loves endings, like that might be nerve-wracking for me, which is probably a big reason why I don't care to like watch sports all the time. But it is a fun thing to just jump into every once in a while and get caught up in just the narrative of that one game, that one moment. And yeah, I definitely see the appeal. I'm definitely right there with you. Um, yeah, sports are cool. Sports are very, very cool. Uh, are they cool all the time for me? That's besides the point. But
No,
they
of
are a
course.
very cool
It's
thing
not for
for millions
everybody,
and
right? Because
billions.
it's
Mm-hmm.
if you're to the level where I'm at, it's time consuming, man. It's very time
Mm-hmm.
consuming, and the beauty of it, right? It happens live, and not to say that you can't watch a game delayed, right? I've done that before, where oh, I can't catch this game, but I can probably watch it tomorrow. So let me stay off social media and I'll check it out tomorrow. It's still time consuming, and you can't it's not like with video games you can have a backlog. You can't really have a sports backlog, right? If you missed it,
Yeah.
it's like we
I
said, it's
still got to watch
constantly
the
happening.
fucking swing of '83.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something I kept thinking about, and that's why I sort of see the poetry of it almost, that I none of my teams have won anything in a while other than Italy. Italy recently won the Euros, right? And it was such an incredible moment. And literally 7 months later, they were eliminated from even qualifying to the World Cup. So it went from like
Mm,
such a height to an immediate such a low. And it brought things in perspective of like the goal for me isn't to win. I of course want my team to win because it's such an exhilarating feeling, right? But the
yeah, yeah,
problem is, like, let's say all of my teams win this year. It's not like next year I'm like, whatever, I don't give a shit, right? You're still
yeah.
back
They
in it.
already won.
It's
Yep.
like,
You
oh,
can
they
always win
won.
again.
I don't care. It's whatever. Only want them to win. I don't watch if they win or don't win. It's just I get swept up in the whole narrative of it, right? And if let's say the Yankees, for example, and I'll close this. We'll finish the sports talk with this. The Yankees in the '90s were a huge dynasty, one of the biggest sports dynasties ever, right? They won a lot.
Hmm.
I wasn't alive
Wow.
for most of that. They won 3 World Series in a row. Then they lost. They lost the next one, or they won four in a row, and then they made it to the next three. It was like huge dynasty, right? Or the Golden State Warriors nowadays, right? Where they won a bunch, they lost a few, they won last year. The the what still draws me to it isn't like the fact that like yeah they win all these years. Now it's about the story of the dynasty, right? It became an era, and it's like when is that going to end? That's going to be an interesting story. Also, whenever that ends, and how that does that end, and how do they pick that back up, and do they keep the same things? It's just it's fascinating. I love there's not many things in life like that that just never end and almost force you to write your own endings for certain stories and just continuing it. And that's why I love them.
Yeah. Shout out to that. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I love that concept a whole lot, So yeah, shout out to sports. Shout out to
Shout
sports.
out.
But if you're a Knicks fan, do you know what I call that?
Oh God.
A series of unfortunate events.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, 100%. It's been a tough time, man. Good year this
Yeah.
year, though. Really good
Oh
year this
yeah.
year. It's been so much
Hopefully
fun.
it's the first of many because y'all need some.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but yeah, a series of unfortunate events is the next thing on my list here as far as things that define me.
Nice. Nice.
Um, I had to dig pretty deep to find a book because I was like, damn, all I do is look at screens. But no, a series of unfortunate events. That's a series of books I read growing up as a kid, middle school. I think I read all these like before I hit ninth grade. And I love this series so much because it is macabre. It is a little bit depressing. It is a little bit sad, but it's funny about it. And you want to talk about SpongeBob being like a defining thing about, oh, I always loved serving up smiles. Well, I always found it hard to serve up smiles in depressing contexts.
Fair.
I I always found it hard to like like lift up someone's spirit from the bottom up just off of a joke. And really what gave me the template for doing that is a series of unfortunate events. Lemony Snicket, which is just their pen name. I forget their actual name, but it's like a way more normal sounding name. Um but yeah,
John
Lemony Snicket,
Johnson.
John Johnson. So John Johnson, no. But yeah, just the way that that book was written was just very like the humor was very dry and very like the worlds were very silly and whimsical, but also just full of like sad stuff and depressing stuff and stuff where like as a preteen at that point reading about these things, it was fascinating. It was just disturbing enough to be a little bit repulsed, but it was also like, but tell me more. Like I want to know more about this. So it was a little bit intriguing in that way. And then like I said, it also showed me ways to laugh about things when things aren't going well. Laugh about things when things are sad or bad or upsetting or scary or anything like that. I can really nowadays I can crack a joke in just about any situation and have it go pretty well. Like I'm it's a blessing and a curse, but more often than not, it's a blessing. So that's part of it too. And then it's also just a series that gave me people people say maybe it's just Gabby saying this, but people say that I sound like I read a lot the way I talk.
I can see
And
that.
I yeah, and I think people get that from the way I talk is largely picked up from this book, from these books, because they do sound like they're very proper, like they're very bookish. All the characters in this series, and I've adapted a little bit of that as I've grown up and realized, oh, I do sound like just this. Now, some of that is because from the book itself. Some of that is because as I've gotten older, watching more video essays, I just pick up vocabulary from shit. And I've also just been the type of kid who watched Discovery Channel for fun.
Fuck
So,
yeah.
like, some of that comes off just naturally. But that book series is another one that I can point to be like, hey, people who think like, oh, he uses all these $15 words, like, that book introduced me to $15 words when all I had was $5 words.
Yeah.
So yeah, that book series kind of, elevated me a little bit in that sense, or maybe, I don't know, subconsciously elevated me in that sense. And yeah, just taught me how to laugh through the pain because the pain goes down a lot easier when you can laugh about it. So yeah, love that series of books. And I love that Netflix series as well. And I still have back in middle school, they had like a little poster contest. You draw a poster for your favorite book. And I drew a poster for the sixth book in the series, The Rat's Elevator.
Nice.
And I got that poster. Yes, I'm very proud of it. I'm not an artistic person. So when I draw something and people like it, I'm like, oh boy. But yeah, I know. And so I got like second place or something in whatever poster contest. But that's besides the point. I kept the poster, had it laminated, got it signed by Patrick Warburton, who played Lemony Snicket in the Netflix series.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, and yeah, I got his little autograph and everything on it up there framed, and it's just a big part of my life. It's just one of those things, man, where I don't think about it too often, but when like I said, I get older, and I'm like, why am I the way I am? That comes up more and more as I think back. So yeah, series of unfortunate events, one of the
That's sick.
greatest things about me.
I love that. I love that. In a bit of a similar vein, I have one TV show here, and I'm gonna give another TV show a shout out, right? Because it's similar
Mhm.
in why I love them and why they represent me. And that's because both of these shows kind of make me like strive to want to be a better person, right? Like they're just filled with with
Viva la
energies.
Bam.
Jackass.
Yeah. Yeah, I am for that joke.
Yes. um yeah, they both make me want to be better, man. And Ted Lasso is the main show that I want to talk about.
Mm.
Um it's gotten all the love in the world. There's not much else that I can add to the conversation of it, but it goes beyond the surface level of what you think it is, right? Because if you see the commercials and you kind of get elevator pitches about it, right? It's like, oh, this coach who is in he's an American football coach and he goes to England to coach football while not knowing much about it. But his whole shtick is that, he's a really nice, positive, warm, honestly, you SpongeBobby kind of guy, right? Like that's
Yep.
that's who he is. And when you hear that, you think that he's just like a cartoon character, right? He's a dude that's not real. And in many ways, he is, and in many ways, a lot of the characters in the show are cartoon characters, right? And but what is brilliant about Ted Lasso is that as you're watching it, it starts to get really real, and it starts to delve deep into mental health and toxic positivity in ways that are
Mm.
it's just a genius show, and it's still funny, and it's still very lightweight, and it's still very sort of like positive vibey, but it also again gets super real, super real. Like it has some of the best depictions of panic attacks that I've ever seen. Right? It's
Mm.
really well done. Really good conversations about therapy and mental health, and all wrapped into just like nice warm feelings. And genuinely makes me want to be a better person because for a period of my life I was the overtly positive person, right? And with good intentions, but I did realize in part through that show and in part through other things that oftentimes that positivity it maybe it's not what you needed at the moment. And yeah, I just love that show.
Mm. I respect that. I need to watch Ted Lasso. God damn
Dude,
it.
it's so good.
Yeah, I've had access to Apple TV Plus for months now, and I still haven't watched it. So I
Season
need to
3 is
fix
coming out
that.
soon.
Yeah, I need to watch Severance as well. That's another one where I'm
So
like, oh my
good,
god.
dude. The other show that I wanted to shout out in that similar vein of like making me want to be a better person is The Good Place. Another one of my favorite shows ever.
Mm.
Same idea that like just the show starts as one thing, and as it evolves, it turns into something else, and it just fills you with nice feeling.
Mm. I like nice feelings. Perhaps I should turn off YouTube every now and then and watch an actual thing.
Yeah,
um,
it's great. I'm not a
yeah.
big TV show person. I honestly don't watch a lot of TV shows, but when I do, there's usually a really good reason for it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't watch too much TV, but one TV show that I did watch for a very, 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 very long time, and it was a big part of my life and still is in certain ways, is the last thing that I'm going to talk about here. And that is The Walking Dead.
Mm.
Um, The Walking Dead, I'm gonna be honest, like when you talk about like the quality of The Walking Dead, like is it one of my favorite TV shows of all time? Not really. No. Like I watched what, like the first 6 seasons or something like that. Whatever the season up until Glenn wasn't on the show anymore, definitively.
Fair enough.
Like
I think
yeah, like
most people dropped off then too.
yeah, exactly. At that point, it was like, oh, the joy's gone. Like, there's no hope anymore. But I watched it religiously, and really the main reason The Walking Dead is on here is less because of just the show, more about the brand, because the brand is really tied up to my perception of family. Because when you want to talk about the show itself, the show was very highly anticipated. You know, everyone, the comics were super popular. The show was being made right as the comics were popping off. And I got my little brother into it. I got my dad into it. So at that season premiere or the series premiere, we were all watching it, watched the whole season together every single Sunday. It was a scheduled thing. We were on top of it every time. And plus, this is early enough where I had no work that day. My parents didn't work over the weekends most of the time. So, like, we, all three of us got together. Eventually, my mom's like, oh, it's not just zombie killing. Like, there's romance and love triangles and stuff. So she's watching it. And of course, my sister didn't want to be left out. So she's watching it. We had a good 3 or 4 seasons straight of
Mm.
everyone, whole family getting together every Sunday night watching The Walking Dead. And there aren't too many family traditions we had that were religious like that. Before Walking Dead came around, before we moved to the city we're at now, there used to be a Chinese restaurant right next to a video store. Every Friday, order Chinese, walk down to the video store. We pick out 4 for $10 was the little deal they had. 4 DVDs for $10. We'd pick out our 4 DVDs. Each kid would pick one, and then the parents would share one. And then we come back, pick up the Chinese food, go home, and watch at least 1 or 2 of them that night. Um, Little traditions like that we had growing up, but we didn't have too many once we moved here. That was the tradition we had for several years. And it went on so long that eventually we all grew up. Eventually, I had to go to work most nights.
Right.
Eventually, yeah, eventually, we fell out of love with the show. Mom and sister left pretty early. I stuck around. Actually, no, I left pretty early because I left when the Glenn thing happened.
Mm.
But like they watched for another few episodes. I think, they got to the end of that season at least. But like, we all fell off of the TV show eventually. But then enter the games where season 1 of The Walking Dead game, if the rest of the family were done with the show, me and my little brother played every single game growing up. That first game was what, 2012, I want to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So if it was 2012, that's what, I might have been 19, 18.
I was
And my
14.
little, yeah, holy shit. You child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, howdy. But like me and my little brother played these. So if I was 18, he was like 10. And so just watching him grow up as we played those games together, like those are some of my most cherished memories of just like he always grew up being like, what's older brother doing? I want to do what he's doing.
Right.
And so it went from there, and growing up to see him by the time season 4 came around, Clementine's a damn near an adult. My little brother's damn near an adult. It's like, the time just goes by. He's his own person now. Yet he'll still come sit down with me and be like, "Oh, a new season's out. Let's do this."
That's awesome.
And like he's a grown ass man to the point where he's like an inch or two taller than me now, even though he's still 8 years younger. He does not look like it. But if another season of The Walking Dead comes out, if Clementine ever comes back, I have a pretty good feeling he will link up and be like, "Yo, let's get together. Next time there's a family get together, or next time we're free on vacation or whatever, we would get together and play that."
Fuck yeah.
So yeah, The Walking Dead it's just a franchise that is given me a lot of time with my family through all of its iterations, through the show, through the games. I think about the quality time I spent with my family thanks to that franchise, and family is something very important to me. And also just the games themselves, the show themselves gave me some perspectives of how to not necessarily raise a family, but how to interact with family and even found family as well. Just those themes really resonate with me due to certain things in my life. So yeah, it a lot of great lessons, or maybe not lessons, but a lot of great portrayals of things. Like Glenn, you want to talk about a strong father figure? Glenn is someone I looked up to, yeah, my dad's there, of course, but Glenn was another one where I'm like, oh, I can be like goofy and shit and also be ready to step up when it's that time in life. Like that was the first portrayal I seen of that ever. He was cracking jokes in season 1 and 2. Then by season 4 and 5, he's like literally everyone's like, oh, it's Zaddy.
True.
And so I was like, oh, that's possible for me too. So yeah, The Walking Dead's a very important show in my life. Would I get up here and say, oh, it's the greatest show I've ever seen? It's probably not even in my top 10,
Fair.
but God, it was a big important part of my life during some really pivotal years. So I got a lot to thank for it.
Totally. Well, I hope you don't get your head beat in by a baseball bat. I hope that's not how
I
you end up.
God, I hope not.
That'd be
That would
that'd
suck.
be a real bummer.
It would be. Good lord. Yeah, that would have a tinge of some other shit attached to
Yeah, not great, not
it.
great.
Yeah,
Not the
not
best way to
great.
end the Spoonful podcast, huh?
Not at all. Did you not? Did I actually say the last one and then we're ending on that one?
Yeah, we are. We are.
Wow, that's incredible. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
everybody, hug your loved ones because they might get jolted.
You never know when that. Fuck. I didn't even think of that.
Well, different sporting utensils, so it's
Yeah,
different.
bats and
Uh,
clubs, and it's all good. What else could you?
that's-
What other? What other? Okay, you couldn't beat somebody to death with a hockey stick. So
yes, you
what?
could.
You think so? But they break. I mean, I guess you could stab them, right? You could stab them
Exactly. You
with
just
it.
keep beating them.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, it breaks. You pick it up and hit again.
that's true. What other? What other sporting equipment could you beat somebody to death with?
A golf tee. It would be
Man,
very surgical and very painful and very long, but
that
you
one
could do it.
sounds. That sounds brutal. That
Yeah,
sounds like a tough way to go.
that would be rough. Like a lacrosse net, you just like swing them around a lot.
I guess. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like the end of Mean Girls.
You think you could do it with a
Um,
tennis racket? I don't know.
oh yeah, because that's a metal frame.
The frame is metal. You're right there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, because
soft
you're
metal,
probably
but it
thinking
is
through the
metal.
wicker. Yeah, yeah, it'll do some damage.
Yeah.
It might not kill you, but like once you hit enough and then it starts bending, yeah, you're using those sharp corners. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're doing
yeah.
hard. A bocce ball.
Okay. See, ball wise, I was thinking, I'm like, I think the only ball that you could do serious damage with is a baseball. But there you go.
Mm, but even a baseball has a soft surface, but like a cricket ball or a bocce ball, hard.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
like, yeah, you're
Gonna mess somebody up with that.
yeah, you're fucking something up. Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
also if I had somebody right pinned down on the floor and I had a fully
Continue. It's just a funny. How do we end here? Well,
this was
please.
such a like an emotional podcast, and now here we are. We are like diving
How would
deep
you
into
kill a man?
But okay, hear me out. If I had
Yeah.
somebody pinned down on the floor, and all I had was a fully filled right with air, I forget the word, fully pumped basketball, and I was just
Mm.
pummeling them in the head with it. I think eventually, right?
Eventually, you're knocking him out.
Something's happening eventually, right? Like if I'm
But
really
that's
going
pure
at it for
blunt.
hours.
Yeah, that's pure blunt force trauma. You're not breaking anything. If you just nail him in the head like 50 million times,
Yeah.
eventually it will just be soup.
Totally. I think I could break a nose. You could break a nose with a basketball for
Oh
sure.
yeah, you can break a nose with a basketball pretty easily.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you could break fingers.
Yeah, maybe knock a tooth out or something like that.
Yeah. You could get some shit done.
All right.
God, we're giving them really fucked up ideas for Last of Us Part 2's season,
Oh
season
no.
2.
Season 2. Abby comes in with a basketball. All right, Joel.
No, it's just a golf tee. Let me at him.
I got him.
It's just a pool dart.
That's the Spoonful podcast. How would you kill somebody with a sporting equipment? Let us know in the comments below.
Oh boy. I will say before we head out, look forward to next episode because next episode is probably, let me look at the calendar. I'm probably gonna talk about, we're gonna do like a before and after thing. I've been planning this and I haven't told you about this yet, but I think we'll do this. I'm gonna talk about the trip I have planned, and then I'm gonna come back from the trip and talk about the trip that just happened.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah, so that's this coming out 14th. By the time the next one comes out, I will already be on the trip. So we'll have to record that sometime week before I leave.
Yeah, we'll record. It'll be a 2-parter episode, but we'll stitch it together to be one full episode. I like.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be like, here's me talking about the trip, and the next episode will be, I just finished the trip. Holy fuck!
I love that. I love it.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right,
Look
everyone.
forward to it. So yeah, look forward to that. It's gonna be fun.
Look forward to that. Thank you so much for watching and/or listening. We'll catch you next time.